Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me for what promises to be a thought-provoking conversation with artist Ronald Jackson. Also joining us for this discussion are collectors of his work, who I will formally introduce during the collector segment of the program. I am Myrtis Bedolla, the founding director of Galerie Myrtis, which is an emerging blue chip gallery and art advisory specializing in African American art. Our mission is to utilize the visual arts to raise awareness for artists who deserve recognition for their contributions in artistically portraying our cultural, social, historical, and political landscapes, and to recognize art movements that pave the way for freedom of artistic expression. Tonight, we are going to explore the life and art of Ronald Jackson on his second solo exhibition at Gallery Myrtis. In this show, Jackson, a figurative painter, draws from his vivid and boundless imagination to construct a fantastical world inhabited by Johnnie Mae King, also known as Aunt Johnnie. Just a little bit of information about where works are of Ronald are in permanent museum collections. They can be found in the Crystal Bridges Museum, the Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art, the Pertucci Family Foundation Collection of African American Art, and the District of Columbia Art Bank. And noted collectors of Ronald's work are Arthur Lewis, Beyonce and Jay-Z, actress Cece Ponder, and Amat Gomez. So Ronald, how are you this evening? Please join me.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm here. Thanks for
Good.
having me. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to join you in this conversation and having a few guest people on the panel with us. I'm delighted to have this discussion.
Good. So we have a PowerPoint presentation, and during the course of our conversation, we will go back and forth and share images of your work. But let's start with your origin story. Where were you born?
Born in, as I often share the the resort state of Arkansas. And I don't know if anyone have had the privilege to go to Arkansas, but that's where I grew up, born and raised, and left there after high school at 17.
And so your parents, and I think legacy is really important um, to understanding what the man that you've become. And
Mhm.
your parents were very much involved in the civil rights movement. Tell us a little bit about that and how that has shaped you as the man that you are today, and that experience, does it show itself in the art that you create?
Um, I don't know how much it shows in my art. I'm sure, for sure it influenced my art in some way, but it definitely influenced who I am as a person. And that's something that I've had to discover. My parents, you know, back in the 60s, led boycotts and things that they were responsible for the forced integration of schools in the area where I grew up. After the Civil Rights Act was passed and schools were no longer to actually supposed to have a plan for integrating. And my parents were instrumental in being a big player in that. And there's a whole list of stories that's wrapped around that involves families being pursued by people, property damage, cross burnings, fires started on a property, guns, mother being targeted from gunmen. It's just a whole array of stories. But because I'm the youngest of 11 kids, typically a lot of stories we all have from our parents, grandparents, but there is kind of a tradition or practice of not sharing so much about what people in the past have experienced. But because I'm the youngest of 11 kids, I have experience as a little kid of uncles, older uncles, aunts coming from Chicago, Illinois, St. Louis, coming back home and sitting on across the table and just reminiscing about stories. And I'm thinking, what were you saying? What happened? Of course, a lot of these things and stories I heard or overheard other conversations. So without getting into the details of that, yeah, that has influenced me quite a bit, and appreciating the things that those before us have gone through and done for us to experience the life we have today.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. So I want to ask you a little bit about how you define yourself as an artist. You've stated, I'm not a portrait painter and I am not an urban painter.
Mhm.
What are you then? Or
Oh,
do you find
wow.
it necessary to define yourself at all?
Oh, no, that is really just a kind of a lighthearted pushback on the idea that I'm a portrait artist, which really represents what I've been doing for the past 4 years is mostly portraits. But I like the idea of exploring a narrative, exploring stories, and that is essentially the biggest thing that I'm trying to convey or start a conversation. And because the show, that the solo show with you back in 2018, prior to that, I was doing more narrative, building more narrative works with multiple figures and in an environment. And because of the 2018 show, I basically did that show in 4 months. Didn't have time to explore more involved works. I did a show that was just portraits of people, with portraits being limited in conveying a narrative. Portraits are usually about identity, who the person is, and about other reflections of the idea of identity. Portraits are limited, but with the incorporation of using a mask with the person, it automatically intrigues a person to inquire and ask, is there a story here? And obviously there is, because a mask is about concealing, either projecting some ideal or concealing something, and suggesting that there's something that you don't know. And people's normal curiosity is to inquire or to discover.
Yeah, so we're going to spend the majority of our conversation kind of unpacking Johnnie Mae King. But I
Okay.
want to share some slides so we can get into a conversation about your process, your thinking, the way the work unfolds, and look at a couple of earlier pieces. So let me just pull those up. So tell us about so this beautiful narrative painting was done in 2001. And oops, I'm sorry, let me go back to that. And tell us about this one. It's a beautiful narrative work. And what was your thinking in creating this piece? What was the intention behind it? And what inspired it?
Okay, this was one of three works that were part of the UTA show in LA was it last year?
Yes,
I think it was, yeah.
2001,
And it
2021.
was around the theme of literary, what was it called?
Literary Muse was the
Yeah,
title of the
literary muse,
exhibition.
creating works associated with different books. And because one of the books that really inspire and connects to the theme of my works was the Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. And this painting here they sent back for us was speaking to the ideal of certain women in the South during Jim Crow, when families were trying to considering moving to other parts of the country to pursue better opportunities and to escape or leave the Jim Crow situations. Usually, it was a man that had to leave first and leave family behind, and there's this idea that this reality that many, whether it's a wife, girlfriend, loved one, daughter, whatever, was left behind, and with the hopes of them coming back to allow us to find a better future. But one of the things I think what this picture leads into is my interest of mixing elements that are flat with more rendered imagery, mixing them together, and it's, you see the clouds are a flat representation of a cloud with a more rendered person in the foreground. The motif that are representing bushes are rendered flat as opposed to being more realistically rendered. And I like that contrast of incorporating, flat, more rendered, kind of the idea of like watching a movie and there's a cartoon element in a real life movie. So this specific style or is something that I'm continually playing with and want to some of the works in the current show is showing that flat element with the more realistic or semi-realistic rendered figure.
Yeah, it's this painting is beautiful, and also with the contrast with the flat background and the figure that's more fluid, it creates this three-dimensional effect on the canvas, like these three-dimensional planes, which is very effective. And
tricky.
and yeah, I love this one. Well, I love them all, so I'm biased, but I love them for different reasons. And also you're a master storyteller. As you were sharing your parents' experience and your family experience and sitting around the table listening to the stories of what happened in your community and the involvement your parents had in the civil rights movement. I think that perhaps this is the way in which it shows itself in terms of the way it informs your work and your creative process.
Yeah, to be honest, I can sit here and for the rest of this webinar, tell some stories that I've heard that would amaze you. A big part of history is not documented on TV for us to know or written in books. But yeah, there are many stories.
I mean, the beauty of what has happened, at least for your parents, is that their involvement has been documented. They may not be well known,
Mhm.
but they have been acknowledged for their contribution in fighting for equality, fighting against racial discrimination. And so they're those, they fall into the category of those unsung heroes who
Right.
risk their lives literally for change. And then, your father, what he did. So we'll just tease people and maybe reveal your parents' names at the end so that they can Google them and go, oh my gosh, now we get it. And I think that they will see, how what they did has shaped you and the man that you've become, and how that shows itself in the storytelling that you do through your work. But let's contrast this mask with the one that was in the piece prior, and talk to us about your process and your thinking with this painting.
This is one of the it's actually representation of one of the early um, one of the early paintings I did of this specific character before I had even given her a name. I create mostly out of imagined person. None of my people are specific to any person. There may be some features that I pull from a reference, but I create characters in all of my paintings, and this represents a person or a woman that I kind of identify with her look, and I chose to make a second painting of her, and I think there are at least 3 paintings with probably at least 4 paintings with this particular mask design, and it represents me really just not not so much focusing on the mask, but each time I painted this character before I gave her the name, I felt that I needed to work on developing a story and a narrative around her.
Mhm, mhm. Well, I love the title because, we, well, not we, but you, in creating this character, this fictitious character, Johnnie Mae King, um, I see her as someone who's self-determined, spirited, maybe a little sassy. And this is something that I've said to my grandchildren and my children, like, I'm settled in who I am. I'm old now. I can say what I want and I'm going to do what I want. So,
Right,
you know,
right,
I love this title.
and really should I share the basic narrative around
Oh,
the
yes,
character?
yes, yes. I have your artist statement, but please do.
Yeah, Jen. I was working last year after in my studio. I think I had made working on my third painting of this character, and for some reason I just kept, it's like I want to do this character again, and an idea came to me. What if I committed in the entirety of 2022 to painting just a singular subject? And I thought that, okay, this would give me the opportunity to build a narrative around one person, and with each painting, allow that narrative to grow and develop and get into telling a story instead of just creating a work with introduction to a potential narrative, leaving it and going to another one. It's like starting something and not finishing it. But with this work, I created the character of Aunt Johnnie based or her background in the 50s and 60s, around that time. Hence the style of her hair, and she is a Black woman uh, based in the South and in a Jim Crow society, and everyone understands the experiences of a Black woman during in that time and place, that they were limited, even to an extent greater than Black men, because often they had to rely on men. But anyway, through her limited ability to explore who she is, she uses her imaginations to escape the reality of her situation. So I start building the idea of Johnnie Mae King time traveling through with her imagination to a time and a place where she is uninhibited, unrestricted by the social constructs of society. She could be whoever she wants to be. She can do whatever she wants to do. And that takes the narrative from a time in the past, and she can explore current life or even the future, and it offers an opportunity for the concept of Afrofuturism to become part of this narrative. So much of the imagery of the show is exploring Johnnie Mae King, how she is choosing to see herself through an imaginative, creative style or look, and she's uninhibited in that way. And one of the things, real quick, is that I realize that I really haven't had the opportunity to really develop the narrative, and so I am choosing to continue this exploration of working with this character in my works, and I feel that eventually I will introduce potentially another character in the story.
Do you think that there will be an interaction on canvas between Johnnie Mae King and the other
Oh,
character?
oh, most definitely, because
Oh, right.
I am
That's exciting to know.
itching to kind of not necessarily leave, but
Yes.
I want to move back to more narrative pieces of figures interacting with one another, as opposed to just the portrait of an individual. So yeah, I am itching to work more of narrative figures in space and in environment. It becomes easier to explore a story.
Awesome. Awesome. Ooh. All right, let's come on. I'm trying to advance to the next slide here. All right,
Probably just, oh, there we go.
there we are. Yes. All right. So here's another work that was also created for the Literary Muse show exhibition with UTA. It was also created in 2021. And why don't you give us a little backstory on this piece?
Yeah, this piece is also speaking to the situation that was narrated in the book Warmth of Other Suns, and there was an element of Black, what did you call it, high society Blacks that had a better situation in the South. They're educated and often had a better existence than some of the Southern whites, and there's with the idea of the Great Migration, there's always the decision, the choices that were being made is, do I go and leave what we've always known, or do I stay? And a lot of people, as my family, my personal family, chose to stay by virtue of them being owners. So this painting represents one of those individuals and of people in the South that had it maybe had certain achievements and had created something for themselves, and it represent what they created in the South as a sentiment of home. But yeah, I don't want to go into the details. I can burn time talking about just some of the elements there, but yeah, and also the flat element being paired with more rendered elements. It's something that I'm interested in.
Right. I'm having problems with my mouse here. Okay, so let's get into a conversation about Johnnie Mae King and a little bit about process and creating the character.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is an example of me of me working on developing the character, how she looks, and the style of the hair, how I could present her. But this represents also an effort of me wanting to explore more of an illustrative style. I am, for one, not so interested in creating like a realistic photorealism, or but I am also wanting to pursue some elements of an illustrative style. So this is an example of me playing around with the character, choosing to outline the certain shades, value shades in the face. It just essentially gives a just a illustrative quality. And one of the things with the hair, you may know this was just an early adaptation of what the hair could look like, but I eventually reformed and reshaped the hair. One of the tricky things with working with flat elements, especially the hair, that can turn into looking like a helmet, which something that artists, graphic artists are quite aware of. So so being able to deliver that, having that flat with the rendered element is kind of tricky. And one disclaimer that I have to provide is that not Myrtis' fault, but the imagery or the photos are not the best quality. So this is not the best representation of this piece and some of the others as well.
The photos didn't translate well. The colors are just not true to what the actual painting looks like.
Right. So this painting and the other one like it, and also with the more rendered paintings, I chose to paint the hair flat, even if you would show some of the other paintings. like she carried in her relics of a buried past. That is essentially all of them have a flat rendered hair.
So I want to move on a little bit so we can bring our collectors into the conversation. And so I'd like to ask for them to join us. Come on camera now. And the first piece, the Johnnie Mae King, the MJMK sketch number 1, was acquired by John Bresman, who is not able to join us. So if you want to speak to this sketch, Ronald, you can, or we'll go to the next image, and because our guest is with us, and we can bring him into the fold. So what would you like to do?
Well, these are somewhat personal studies that are not just for study's sake in producing another work, but it's me through repetition, working on a character, me defining what I like, what I don't, what I want to refine. But this is a drawing on mylar, and mylar is a type of translucent plastic as opposed to paper. And this painting or this drawing here is a color pencil, a blue color pencil, but this out of the two is a double layered drawing. The gray in the background is a separate layer behind the first layer, and it is like a black acrylic that through the first layer is coming through a ghostly gray effect. And that's something that I was just exploring with this material.
Okay. Now this beautiful painting was acquired by Keith Brooks, who's with us. Keith, would you like to join us on camera now? Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. So I'll allow for you to pose at least one question at this point. We want to get the other collectors on camera soon, and then we'll regroup and everyone can just have this wonderful dialogue going on with Ronald. But why don't you pose your first question?
Yeah, so before I pose the question, I think just for background, right? I first discovered Ronald's work back in 2018, and actually, Myrtis, it was through the solo exhibition that you had with Ronald. So I started following him from there, and really kind of paying attention to his work. Looked at the 2020 Netflix produced movie Really Love, which also featured a number of Ronald's paintings. And from there, just kept following him and his work. And my wife and I, as we really admired the work, we decided that we needed to add Ronald to the collection. So luckily, through this most recent solo exhibition, we had the opportunity to acquire. Her name is Johnnie Mae King, Traveler of Both Space and Time. And quite frankly, when we saw the work, my wife and I both had the same reaction, which was just, frankly, wow, the piece kind of hit us. And, with art, I'm a firm believer that, art that truly resonates with you, it hits you almost immediately. You don't need some nuanced, artificial reason for liking it, right? Your gut reacts, your mind and your body know it when you see it. And both my wife and I had that reaction when we saw this work. So super grateful for the opportunity and excited to welcome Johnnie Mae into our home. In terms of the question, Ronald, one question that is mainly centered on the entire collection for this particular exhibition. I noticed that a number of the pieces feature a maskless Johnnie Mae, right? But each of those maskless Johnnie Mae's also have a number of elements that, in my opinion, bring a different and unique aspect to the artwork. So for this piece in particular, right, the sunglasses, the pilot's hat, the floral jacket, For pieces like the two birds now fly free from a stone thrower's hand, the hair color, the visor, the incorporation of the shotgun. For she carried with her relics of a buried past, the hair color, the painted face, the uniform. I think it's really well done across the collection, and it works really well throughout the collection. So my question is, what mental model did you use to help determine how to incorporate these unique elements of these particular works versus the mask, which is a powerful and unique element in itself?
Yeah, yeah. The mask is significant with my work, and is oftentimes my work is identified by the mask. But the mask in itself for me is not the magic or where the magic is. It's just an element to invite the viewer to contemplate potentially a little more purposefully or deeper. And what I realized is that I don't want the work to be about the mask. I want you to look beyond the mask and just inquire about the person. The mask is there just as a disruption of a normal viewer gaze. It's obscuring part of the face. It's also projecting you looking past a floral or pattern imagery, and it's disrupting. But what I want to do as well is to use other elements that kind of obscure, hide the face, and still have that same effect, which I've been playing around with, and there are other things that I can incorporate that points that it's not necessarily the mask again that has the magic, and I want to suggest or share that likely incorporating mask with the figure is something that I enjoy doing and will be I don't know for how long a part of my work, but it will not be identified as the singular existing element that identifies my work. So I want to shift from the mask to other ways of us looking at a person and being disrupted in our attempt to identify with the person.
That's wonderful. So in this painting, do you think the glasses that Johnny's wearing are the disruptor?
Yeah, most definitely. That's what, just the opportunity to be mesmerized, by the hypnotic element of
Most definitely.
glasses, and most definitely with this piece, looking closer at the glasses, there's quite a bit to the painting more than is visualized through the imagery here. But yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. I'm going to go to the next. And now Douglas Frazier is not able to join us, but maybe you could spend just a brief moment talking about this, and then we'll move on to Julian, who is here with us.
Okay. She carried in her relics of a buried past. And again, there's the flat hair. That's something that without tempted to render the hair to give it volume, but I resisted, and that's something that is important and what I'm trying to do compared to the more rendered dress. But here is an example of the face being disrupted, or the gaze being disrupted by the white paint. Is this a mime? Is this a clown? Is it, those questions are there, and what those questions are responding to is the disruption of the image and how she's presenting herself. But the idea behind she carried in her relics of a buried past is as African Americans, our ancestral DNA is often mixed up, and just as our ancestors represents enslaved Africans, a lot of our ancestry also involves European people, and whether they were part of some war, Civil War, or part of the French. I know from my ancestry, from my mother's side, there's French. From my father's side, there's English or British, and mostly of Nigerian African descent. But as far as buried past, there are some things in our past that we can keep buried, but this just represents something about the person that may not, some people may not want to reveal and choose to bury, but she is showing who she is, and with not any specifics. It's just a notion to what that existence could be.
Well, again, the titles are so apropos. I mean, it really does cause you to stop and kind of ponder what it is that speaks to, especially as you look at Johnnie Mae as you've created her in this painting. So just masterfully done. Julian, would you like to join us? Great. All right. So here's your opportunity to kind of introduce yourself a bit and then pose your question to Ronald.
I'll open up by saying I and my family, we're huge fans of yours. And we've been super blessed to be able to acquire some of your works, especially early days here. And as it relates to the collection, I want to be able to have something to pass on to future generations. We have two little kids that we also want to embody, because I grew up with a lot of Black art around me in my home, and I wanted to kind of keep that notion of identity and self understanding going. And as I've been going deeper into your catalog and just getting to know you through the work that you've released and reading about you, I had a chance to tune into the virtual preview, right? And there was a conversation between you and Danielle, and you were walking through your studio, giving all the kind of juicy details that you had to have been on the call to hear, right? And you got to sketch number 3 at one point, and both of you kind of stopped, and you were like, maybe I don't finish this one. Maybe we continue. So there was this conversation, and I think that was a huge kind of breakthrough moment. And I like to associate a few words with that and how it resonated with me. And I just jotted them down. It was finality, acceptance, comfort, perspective, story, and possibility, right? Because you're looking at this piece and you're saying, you know what, that's good enough, right? So, and I know as an artist, you could probably sit there and ponder what you can do all day. So my question is, through that conversation or something, what happened where you said, you know what, I'm going to leave this sketch as is and leave room for interpretation and not fill it in with your traditional elements and colors and patterns and just kind of elements from the other work?
Right, right. From some of my previous paintings, I use patterns a lot that are motifs of like foliage, which for me is a representation of a non-urban environment. So there you have the leaf work, and in a few of my works, that pattern it's essentially a pattern. Again, I'm just working with flat images, and there's the fractured piecing together of those shapes. But a few of my paintings have had the black and white background without incorporating color, and this pretty much I see I saw that is something that I could do with this, and for the figure or the character, I like to draw. I do quite a bit of sketching in regards to preparing for works, but I miss the opportunity to sketch and draw more, and to just present a work that is a basic sketch. It's not worked. It's kind of just a basic what would I call it, framework for the character, and I felt with this one and some of the other ones, the essence of her is there, and I also just appreciate seeing line work as a drawing, and that's something that I have books of sketches and drawings, but I never share or release just my drawing. So this is something that gave me the mind to, okay, just present some of your drawings, and I'm inspired to do more of providing sketches and drawings, even if they're not fully sketched out. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Shayna, did I pronounce it correctly? Sheena.
Sheena McDonough Holland. Good evening.
Yes. Wonderful.
Good
So,
evening.
yes. I was just going to ask you to, give us a little bit of background and then pose your question to Ronald as well.
Sure. So thank you, Myrtis, for providing this platform this evening, and for you, Ronald, for just being transparent and giving us a deeper look in your mind and your thinking behind your work. So it's truly appreciated. And as you know, I've tried to acquire a piece for several years, so I'm very excited to welcome one of your pieces into my collection. My question for you is, the piece is titled March 7th, 1965. And as we know, that is a life-changing event in history, the Selma to Montgomery March. And many were, a lot happened on that day. And then I see Aunt Johnnie Mae with a yellow a yellow tulip, and yellow tulips represent hope. They can represent hope. So my question is there a connection with why you selected the yellow tulip with that event. And as you can see, you said not so much to focus on the mask, but more so behind what's the story behind. And her eyes and looking at them, they're almost like saddened by this moment. Is she a part of this moment? Is she watching from afar? Like where is her space, Johnnie Mae, in this piece?
Right. I would first start off by saying I thank you for taking interest in this piece and your question, and of course, yes, the date does reflect the happenings of Selma, Alabama, and that is as most of my works that have a title that doesn't necessarily reflect anything in the image. It's just a place or a starter point for the viewer to start from. So with the flower, of course, I didn't know the yellow tulip, the meaning behind that, but I just chose to, and there was another painting or two that has this similar mask, and changing the color of the flower is not something that I was aware of, but I did see it as a reference to the people and their experiences during that time. This painting also represents one of the earliest painting that I did of this character. It's a kind of a recreation. The initial first painting I did was more like 16 by 20. This is, of course, 47 inches, and this is one of three of my first paintings on paper that I've done via acrylic, and I think it's so nicely framed and depicted in the frame. But essentially, for me, I like to have the title as a landing point, a basis for which we can view and speculate and ponder about the character. But as specifically with the background of the character being from the South, that period of the 50s and 60s, that places her in that context, and I am inviting the viewer to speculate and build the story. I'm really not as interested in creating or specifically guiding you to what everything means, but I want to start you to more of an interactive experience, and maybe I'll get the chance to share just a note regarding my effort that I am creating a collaboration between visual art and writers to help contribute and build a narrative together. So yeah, I don't know if that completely answered your question, but I'll give it a second stab if it didn't.
No, I mean, it was I appreciate your insight. Almost like in education, as we would say, like a sentence starter or like a art starter, and then you would just kind of gather your thoughts and just start the narrative like based on the topic, and create an image of what could have with the character in that era or that date and time.
Right. And one of the things as a educational piece, the title alone, if you don't know what happened during that time, it is another thing that should pique someone's interest to ask the question, okay, what is significant about that date? And it would hopefully lead them to learn or find out, uncover what that was, and it has some reference to this character.
Okay, great.
Thank you, and we're happy to welcome it into our home.
All right.
So we have one additional painting here. Would you like to speak to this one? And then we'll invite Keith and Julian back. I don't think we'll have time to take questions from our audience, but maybe we could take one or two if you folks want
Okay.
to post something in the chat. And
Yeah.
then I invite Keith and Julian to come back on camera. We're almost at 8. We may go over a little bit, but if folks want to stay with us, we welcome that. Ronald, can you talk to us about this piece and also absolutely about the title?
Right. Well, I'll go ahead and express again. This is a perfect example of me incorporating the flat hair element. Johnnie Mae is free to see herself, imagine herself in any style or way that she wants to do. She has that imaginative power to do so. The title, she looked across the countryside for a place that honored her dreams, speaks to the time of the situations of many during the Great Migration. Is looking beyond their current circumstances, their current reality or situation, and dreaming or wondering about, is there a place, whether it's in this country or where across the country, where I could be my best self, or I can and exist in a way where my uniqueness, my greatness is appreciated, desired. So that is a painting of her, and again, this is starting a narrative that I will seek to build on. She is, where is she? So based on the background of the character, she is likely still in that southern place, Jim Crow society. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, Keith and Julian, would you like to join us? Everyone join us back on camera now. And Keith, I'll allow you to pose the next question if you'd like.
Yeah, sure thing. Ronald, can you talk a little bit about if, the background in the particular piece that we acquired, the facial sentiment. I noticed a lot of elements that I would consider to be elements that are pretty traditional to a lot of your works, super powerful. But I also noticed some things around the more pronounced contouring and things like that. So generally curious, as you thought about pieces from this latest exhibition, with Johnnie Mae, if they were overarching themes that, kind of force you to differentiate between some of the works in this particular collection.
To be honest, I would say not so much. I see you point out or notice the specific contouring of the face, and that is an effort of me making a shift in how I am painting. And as I expressed earlier, you know, there's a direction of not necessarily me changing how I paint, but there's an interest of me creating a style that is somewhat illustrative, as opposed to the more painterly or rendering of faces or a figure. So in many of the works, there's a combination of different styles, you know, as I've continually mentioned about the flat hair, a transition progression from more painterly to illustrative rendering. The background is, that particular background is represented in at least a couple paintings that I have done so far. That background is represented, is shown differently in many paintings. Some are more of just a pattern, a flat pattern. And it started with me incorporating the 19th century designer William Morris out of England, his line of patterns that is used, and I've adapted a couple in my work to serve as a representation of as I've said before, a non-urban existence. So that keeps occurring through my work in a way or representation as it is in that one, or it's more of a flat representation in other works. So that's something I essentially use to denote, at least for me, it comes in place of putting buildings or something man-made. It's a reference to non-urban environment. And I think you had asked something else. If you can re-ask or restate if I didn't speak to that.
Yeah, you addressed the question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, I think we better bring the program to a close now. We're well after 8. We're a little after 8. But Ronald, before I give my closing comments, I wanted to allow you to state anything that you'd like for us to know before we close, what's coming next for Ronald, or just open the floor for you to have some comments of your own.
Okay. Well. I guess lastly, I want to say thank you to everyone for taking interest, time from your evening to tune in. Thank you to all of the collectors and those that have taken further interest to acquire a work. I do want to just make a note that I have expressed that I'm working on a collaboration that I've had to take a momentary pause with. It's a collaboration of which I'm working with a developer and create an application where visual art and writers can come together in a community to collaborate and to build narrative. And I will be within some point soon. I'm not going to nail myself down. Be inviting people to join me on a platform like this, a webinar where I will introduce the beta version of this and just talk with a guest host writer, because I want to involve the writing community to collaborate with visual artists and build stories and narrative and share the creative process together. So I have something, but it's being delayed now because of IP, intellectual property, situation. So yeah, just look out for that, and I'm
So
excited.
that's the primer, that's the teaser, right?
Right.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So before I close and make my final comments, I wanted to just share some of the great exhibitions that are coming up within and outside of Galerie Myrtis. On August 7th, we have an opening at the Featherstone Arts Center. We're part of a group exhibition titled Imagine, Celebrating Black Female Creativity, curated by Dr. Adrian Childs, and that's in Martha's Vineyard. So that opens this Sunday. In Galerie Myrtis, we will be opening on September 7th, a 3-women exhibition titled The Beautiful and the Damned. And that will, in that show, we're featuring the work of Libet Ballard, Monica Ikegwu, and Megan Lewis. We will also be at the Jacob Javits Center in New York, showing print work at the International Fine Art Dealers Association in October. And lastly, we will be participating in Art Basel at the Context Art Fair in Miami, and that is November 27th, I'm sorry, the 29th through December 4th, featuring Tony Chapman, Monica Ikegwu, Megan Lewis, Delita Martin, and Philandis Thames. So thank you, Ronald. This was a awesome experience. I learned so much. You did a beautiful job of talking about your work and contextualizing it for us. And as much as I thought I knew, I've learned even more. And I love experiences like that. So you be congratulated for doing such a wonderful job in interpreting your work and allowing us to get into the head of the creative. So I always enjoy opportunities like that. To our guests, the collectors, thank you for enriching this experience with your wonderful questions. I so appreciate your time. And for the many guests who joined us virtually, we thank you for joining us this evening and hope that you will stay in touch with both Ronald and the gallery. So thank you all. This was wonderful, Ronald. Thank you so much. And everyone have a good rest of the evening. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.